and welcome again to Pockenrop. Today's video, I am returning to my favourite band of all time, the Beatles, and I'm going to rank their studio albums. So there will be 13 items on this list, as I am including the Magical Mystery Tour album, despite the fact that this was not released as a cohesive album, but it was added to the official canon in 1987 when they remastered the entire catalogue for CD. Despite the fact they are my favourite band, I don't own every album that's on this list. At number 13, pretty much everybody would put this as their lowest ranked Beatles studio album. It is, of course, Yellow Submarine, the soundtrack to the excellent animated film. The big problem is there's only 4 original tracks on it. There are only 6 Beatle tracks on it, 2 of which were previously released and widely available. Of those 4 tracks, 2 are George songs that weren't good enough for Sgt Pepper. 1 is a throwaway Paul song altogether now, but there is Hey Bulldog, which is great. I own these tracks through the Mono Masters. The other way of getting hold of these tracks, which is probably a better approach, is actually the Yellow Submarine song track that came out in 1999, includes everything that was in the film, which of course includes those 4 tracks. So number 13, Yellow Submarine. And number 12 is another Beatle album that I don't own in the original format in which it was released. And it's Let It Be. I do own Let It Be Naked and vastly prefer it. The chief problem with the Let It Be album is Phil Spector. This Spectorized version of the Beatles' original vision is what I think drags it down. I don't like the chatter between songs from John, and given the fact that John clearly wasn't that interested in the project and was kind of phoning it in, to have stamped his authority all over it with these clever little quips feels wrong. I'm not saying that Phil Spector's decisions were all terrible. The idea of taking the short snippet that was I Me Mine and expanding it into the full track is great. I Me Mine is a really good song. Let It Be itself is great. The single version is better, as produced by Martin. And I prefer the single version of Get Back. I prefer the original version of Across the Universe. I kind of prefer the bootleg that you hear, One After 909. And then there's Two of Us, it's good. I Dig a Pony, not that great. And then Maggie May and Dig It are horrible. And that's the reason for it coming down as low as it does. I do like Let It Be Naked. I think it's a much better version. And then finally, the real travesty was what Spector did to Long and Winding Road. Now, it's not a favourite Beatle track, but that choir is so syrupy that it drags the song down. And again, the Let It Be Naked version is so much better. I have got this album coming as the newly released 51st anniversary box set very soon, and it'd be interesting to see what they've done with it and how they may have improved that mix. Plus there's the Glyn Johns Get Back remix in there as well, which is going to be quite interesting. But Let It Be, number 12. At number 11 is their debut, Please Please Me. It's a good album. I don't think it's a great album. There's too many covers on it to really elevate it into that great category. And the originals on here, Please Please Me's good, Love Me Do's charming, and I saw her standing there is truly great. They also do some really, really fine cover versions like Twist and Shout, which I think is amongst their greatest covers that they ever did. But overall, there's just better Beatles albums out there. You can't underestimate the impact this record had at the time, but it's my number 11. Please Please Me. At number 10, I placed an album that a few weeks ago I'd have ranked at number 12, but re-listening to it, I found it better than I remember. Beatles For Sale. Like Please Please Me, 6 of the 14 tracks on here are covers, and it does contain one of the very worst things they ever put out, Mr. Moonlight. But don't let Mr. Moonlight cloud you like it did me as to how good some of the stuff on this album is on here. The originals are all really good. I Don't Want to Spoil the Party. No Reply, Babies in Black. the beautiful little song that is I'll Follow the Sun, which apparently Paul wrote in 1957, so it'd been sitting in his back pocket for a long, long time before it finally came out on Beatles For Sale. It is true that as a band, they were clearly exhausted by constant touring, by the explosion that took place over in America with the British invasion. But Beatles For Sale is actually a fine album. And for a lower tier Beatles album, it's still really good. Number 10, Beatles For Sale. At number 9 is where I've placed Magical Mystery Tour. Now, this is all music from 1967, but it is not a coherent album. It was 2 EPs in the UK, which is the first lot of tracks you see up here. And then all of the singles and B-sides from 1967 end up on side 2. So the music on here is amazing. Magical Mystery Tour, Fool on the Hill, I Am the Walrus, Penny Lane, Strawberry Fields Forever, Hello Goodbye. All of those are top draw. But there are a few tracks on here that are a little bit lesser. Flying, Blue Jay Way, which I think is one of George's weakest tracks. Your Mother Should Know, which has just got very little to it. And then there's 2 tracks that I rank amongst the very lowest of Beatles releases ever. You've already heard what I think of All You Need Is Love. Its B-side, Baby You're a Rich Man, is far worse. I can't stand it. However, the quality of the great material on here means that I end up ranking it at number 9, Magical Mystery Tour. At number 8, and I might get a few comments below about disagreement on this, The Beatles, the White Album. There's a reason this is at number 8 for me, and that there is too many tracks on here that I don't care for or actively dislike for it to be ranked any higher. Revolution 9, I'm Looking at You. Your Blues, I'm Looking at You Too. Both of those songs I detest. Good Night isn't good enough for me. I did a video where I condensed the White Album to a single disc, which you can click on there, where I think it was a peerless, possibly their greatest ever album quality if it was a single. But as a double, too much to cut for me. And that's why I rank it at number 8. At number 7, I have placed my favourite of the cover-heavy albums, and it's With the Beatles. I don't think they really put a foot wrong on this record. They were by now massive. They'd had number 1 album with Please Please Me. They'd had number 1 single with From Me to You. And with the Beatles, it's not merely capitalising on that success, it's building on it. So it won't be long. All I've got to do and All My Loving kick off the record brilliantly. And All My Loving is amongst my all-time favourite Beatles tracks. The cover version of Till There Was You sometimes gets a bit of stick, but it just shows the variety of music that they enjoyed. I know that Hold Me Tight gets a little bit of stick as a Beatle by Numbers track, but it was still really good. And then just to kind of almost rip off the formula from Please Please Me, Money at the end is an absolutely astonishing cover version sung by John. It matches Twist and Shout for brilliance. I think With the Beatles, as I say, is the best of the cover-heavy albums, the 3 of those that they did. And that's why I placed it at number 7. At number 6, I have placed the album that was the first one they released that was solely made of Beatle-only compositions, and it's A Hard Day's Night, the soundtrack, or at least half soundtrack, of the Hard Day's Night film. There were 13 tracks on here, all written by Lennon and McCartney, of which McCartney wrote 3. Those 3 are Can't Buy Me Love, the lead-off single, And I Love Her, an absolute classic ballad, and Things We Said Today, which I think more than holds its own. John was genuinely on fire when he was writing this record, and it's probably got his stamp on more than anything else in their catalogue. It's my number 6, A Hard Day's Night. Into my top 5, and at number 5 I have placed Help. Now, for me, this is the album that really showed the maturity in their songwriting. So we have his first Dylan pastiche from John in You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. We've got the brilliant singles of Help and Ticket to Ride. But this is also where Paul McCartney comes into his own as a songwriter, in my opinion, with Yesterday, I've Just Seen a Face, Another Girl, and The Night Before. George comes into his own with You Like Me Too Much and If I Needed Someone. There are two famous outtakes from this album, That Means a Lot and If You've Got Troubles, both of which are pretty poor. And they made the right decision to ditch them and put on two covers, which were Dizzy Miss Lizzie and Act Naturally. Help, my number 5. And number 4, Sgt Pepper. Sgt Pepper has had more books written about it than perhaps any other album ever released. So I'm not going to add to that wealth of knowledge because I just can't. What I can say is, even now, Sgt Pepper sounds like it was recorded yesterday. And that is an incredible achievement of production and engineering. To still sound fresh and new more than 50 years on after it was released is just shows what effort went into this. I think the songs on here are absolutely fantastic. Sgt Pepper's is amazing. And if you've never heard it, why not? Go and listen to Sgt Pepper. Brilliant album. Number 4. And number 3, I have placed Rubber Soul. The songwriting on here is where they went stratospherically brilliant. In My Life, Girl, I'm Looking Through You, Drive My Car, Think for Yourself, You Won't See Me. It's a plethora of brilliant songs. And whilst some of them have become perhaps overplayed, perhaps like Michelle, that you kind of get a bit fed up of hearing, when you listen to it again with fresh ears, you realise just how good a song it is. It has its flaws. And I'm Looking at You, Run for Your Life. A song that John Lennon himself admitted was one of his least favourites he'd ever written and recorded. It's a nasty song. And Rubber Soul would be better at 13 tracks rather than 14, but it is still an amazing album. Rubber Soul, number 3. At number 2, for me, is Revolver. As the follow-up to Rubber Soul, this is yet another leap forward, not just in songwriting, but this time in studio production. This gave the world Taxman and For No One and Here, There and Everywhere and Your Bird Can Sing and Dr. Robert and Gotta Get You Into My Life and Eleanor Rigby. It's an amazingly good album. It's often cited as being better than Pepper, and clearly I think it is as well. I think the songs on here are better than they are on Pepper. What stops this from being number 1? There's a couple of tracks on here that I think are just okay. I don't hate them, I don't skip them, and that's Tomorrow Never Knows, despite the fact that a lot of people absolutely think it's brilliant and amazing, and Love You Too from George. But Revolver as a cohesive album statement is something kind of special from 1966, my number 2. So if you've been following along, you'll have no surprises that it's Abbey Road at number 1. Not only is this my number 1 Beatles album, it's my number 1 album of all time. Everything about Abbey Road is incredible. This is the 50th anniversary triple vinyl. What can you say about an album that was effectively their last recorded statement? Well, we have something. One of their very finest tracks. We have the medley on side 2, which is incredible, especially those final 3 tracks of Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight in the end. And this 50th anniversary remastering even makes me like I Want You, She's So Heavy. It's brilliant. It's my favourite album of all time. Abbey Road, my number 1. So that concludes my Beatle ranking. Everybody's got one. If you're a Beatle fan, you know what your ranking is. Use the comments below and pop them in there. I'd love to see what everybody else ranks. But until next time, please remember to like the video, subscribe and hit the bell to receive notifications. I'm thinking of doing a video where I actually state what my least favourite and my most favourite track from each Beatles album actually is. If you'd like to see that, do let me know. But until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.